Hi everybody, very welcome to yet another Sunday night live stream. Now this is a special live stream, guys, because I'm doing this from the home of my parents. That's why I'm not in my normal setting. I'm actually in the bedroom sitting on a bed, so we'll see how long I can stand up with this. And because of that, you might have a slight lower volume as well, because I'm using the internal speaker of my computer, and it might just sound a little bit less than what you're used to. The benefit though is that I'm sitting with a full 100 megabit uploading cable that my parents have, so internet should not be a problem today, which means that we can ask as many questions as you like. As always, guys, I will be answering questions in the super chat first, so if you have something that's really important, or if you just want to support the channel, then use the super chat to do so, and I will answer the questions there. Secondarily, I will also like to say congratulations to France for winning the World Cup. That was an impressive victory, and all of you guys who are out there who are French, great. All my congratulations to you. You've done a fantastic tournament. I would also like to start by saying Mazel Tov to Elad Finch from Bet Shemesh in Israel. I heard that you got engaged last week. Congratulations to you. You have a lovely life in front of you, and I want to say congratulations to you. All right, so I hope you're watching this because some of your friends have been sending me this message, and I wanted to give it to you. Now, on to the questions. If you guys have any specific questions, then as I said, use the super chat or the Mentour Aviation app, which I really hope that you have downloaded. You see that little airplane symbol there? This one here? That's the Mentour Aviation app, okay? Every one of you should have that one. And if you do have it, please give it a review in App Store, okay? It helps me a lot if you write something nice and you give it a review. It's going to help more aviation enthusiasts to get in there, and it just makes it easier for the app to grow and for the community to grow, and that's really what I'm after. So I'm going to take questions inside of the app until I get questions on the super chat, and then after that I will also take questions from the normal chat. So here we go. First question I'm getting: can you talk about the Ryanair incident? Yes, I don't have any more insights than you do, guys. There was an incident involving a Ryanair aircraft during the week. It was a rapid depressurization followed by an emergency descent over Germany. They ended up diverting to, I think, Frankfurt Hahn, and there was quite widespread media coverage about how the passengers felt. All right. Now, I can't say anything about what actually happened. It was likely some kind of technical failure, probably had something to do with the outflow valve or the controller, the automatic controller that controls pressurization inside of the aircraft. In any case, the crew got an indication of a pressure drop inside of the cabin. And what happens anytime that we get a pressure drop is that we put our oxygen masks on, we sit in there, we try to fix the failure by closing the outflow valve if it's possible. But if we see that we cannot handle the failure, as in that it doesn't work, whatever we're trying to do, we're trying to fix it, if that doesn't work, then we initiate an emergency descent. Now, an emergency descent is going to feel like a really violent maneuver, because if you're sitting in the cabin, if you're a passenger, what you will notice is that you might hear a poof, or you can feel the whiz of the air flowing out when the failure happens. Secondarily, the masks are going to drop as the masks are as the cabin altitude exceeds 13,000 feet and climbing. Then the mask will automatically drop, and then after that, you will probably hear on the PA emergency descent, emergency descent, emergency descent from the captain. After which the aircraft will tip down and it will start descending, and probably in a descending turn, because what we will be doing, if we can control the pressure, is that we need to get down to below 10,000 feet as quickly as possible, and we need to do that normally by turning 45 degrees off the airway to avoid any traffic that might be below us, right? We will also have squawked 7700, and the first officer, who becomes the pilot monitoring automatically in case of emergency descent, will call a mayday call to tell traffic control and tell all units below that here we are going to descend now, no matter what you guys say. And this is exactly what happened. It seemed to have been done just according to the book, but because of the pressure change, because of the loss of pressure, what you have is the cabin climbing from about 8,000 feet altitude, which it normally is at when we're cruising, up to whatever they were at, 36, 37,000 feet in a matter of seconds. And this is what caused those reports of bleeding ears and stuff like that. Because if you have that pressure drop, if you're not quick with equalizing the pressure, you might actually burst eardrums and you might have some quite bad pain in your ear. It has nothing to do with how the air crew is handling the maneuver. It has to do with the nature of what's actually going on, which in this case is a rapid depressurization. So the emergency descent seems to be done well. The then diversion will be normal, especially if you have passengers that are not feeling well. You want to get down to deck and get medical attention. And as far as I could see from all the media reportage that I've seen now, it seemed to have happened exactly that way. So I have done a video on this. If you go into the Mentour Aviation app, you will see that I just put up a video about how, I did a briefing video. It's quite long, it's about half an hour long, about exactly what the pilots do in case of a rapid depressurization and an emergency descent, how we think, what you need to think about. But it's a good video. All right, it's a bit one of my older videos, but it's quite good, has a lot of information in it. So go and check it out. It's here on YouTube as well. Just look for rapid depressurization and Mentour Pilot and you'll find it. All right, so that's my first tip. All right, so now there seems to be quite a lot of questions here on the super chat, so I'll try to tick them off. From Bishwadip Barua, what is the light on the wing trailing edge on the 737? The light on the wing trailing edge, I would probably expect that to be the logo light that you're seeing. It's a light that is there to illuminate the logo. And that's what I'm guessing you're referring to anyway. So it illuminates actually the fin of the aircraft behind, just to just show whatever logo that is on. It could be. It could also be the position light that you're seeing. So we have a white light on each wing. We also have a green light on the right side and a red light on the left side, and the strobe lights that are blinking. So it could be any of those lights. So K9 Pilot 44, K9 Pilot. Cool. Love your channel from an aspiring pilot. Is it a good idea to do flight training while in high school, or should I wait until I'm out of school? I think you can probably start if you feel like you cannot hold yourself, that the aviation bug is so strong that you really, really need to do some flying. But the actual training you can hold off until after school, because it's actually good to concentrate while you're in school at getting good grades so that you have an advantage point when it comes to looking for jobs later on. So I would suggest that what you should be doing is concentrate on schoolwork, fly a little bit leisurely to kind of keep your spirit up, but then concentrate on getting your actual flight training once you're out of school, and potentially think about getting a college degree as well, because some airlines, especially in the US, might require you to have one. Okay? Mike Pitao, I think I pronounced that right anyway. Hi Mentor, how difficult is it in your opinion to convert between FAA and EASA licenses? Not very difficult. It will be time consuming, all right? Because you need to probably redo about all of the ATPL exams. So that means that you need to come to Europe, you need to find a flight school, you probably need to brush up on your theoretical skills, read a little bit of question banks, and maybe brush up on some flying skills as well. And then you need to do the exams, and you also need to do some skill tests in most cases. It's a little bit depending on what kind of previous experience you have. If you have 737 or jet experience, you might be able to shorten it down. If you have very little experience, it might be a slightly longer process. So what I would tell you to do is just get in contact with, for example, OSM Flight Academy, which is a flight academy that I'm working quite closely with. They have programs for people coming from the FAA wanting to get into to an EASA license, and they can make a plan for you. Just tell them that I sent you. All right. And basically, guys, if any one of you are going into any of the flight schools that I mentioned on my channel, I'm going to be doing more work together with certain flight schools going forward. Then I want you to tell them that that you heard about that school through my channel, because I'm trying to keep a little bit of track on how much people are actually listening to what I'm saying, and if people are taking my advice when it comes to good flight schools. All right. So just tell them that you got it from Mentour Pilot, and that's it. I will probably start doing some referrals directly from my website as well onto schools that I have really checked out. I have a few schools where I have spies sent out to check out the quality of the schools right now. Don't tell them. right? And those schools, if I get a quality report back from those students saying that yes, I was really happy with this, depending on if they were not happy with something, I might work on it. But if I get a very good positive outcome, then I'm starting to feature them. All right, to tell you, you guys should be going through this school because it's good in this way. So you can expect that to come up both in the app and on the website. So website is this one, mentorpilot.com, right? Right, so Jordan Cole. Say, Jordan, good to hear from you. I heard people had bleeding ears. Can a rapid decompression cause deafness due to perforated eardrums? I guess in a extreme case it could. I mean, if you perforate your eardrum, if you burst your eardrum, it could definitely lead to problems, to hearing loss. But in most cases, no, not really. It will be painful and it will take a while to get back from. But sure, I mean, if you're sitting in an aircraft cabin that suddenly climbs about 26,000 feet in a matter of a couple of seconds, yes, you could definitely hurt your ears, and this is what happened. All right, but once again, I really want to emphasize that the maneuver in itself is a standard maneuver that trained pilots are expected to do when they get a rapid depressurization that I cannot control. The first thing they do is they try to fix it, but they can only do so for a few seconds because, listen, it's really important to get people down into breathable oxygen. So the first thing is have always to go into oxygen. Second thing is to establish communication. Third thing is to try to fix the problem. Fourth thing, once they've decided that no matter what we do in this with this aircraft, there's something that's gone wrong, is to get down. And that's exactly what these pilots did, which I applaud them for doing. Good job. Right, so Jonathan Nielsen, do you know of Center Air Pilot Academy in Denmark? If yes, what's your impression of the school? Cheer from Copenhagen. I do not know them. All right, I've heard of them. I do not have any opinion on them, and this is something that I will continue to do. Right, I know that you guys have been asking me. A lot of you guys have been asking me to give my opinion about different flight schools, but I have to be professional when it comes to this, which means that I'm not going to be recommending schools that haven't been checked out by me, that I haven't had a chance to check out beforehand. Okay, if you think that your flight school should be on the list, then use the link. Sorry, use the app to contact me personally and say this school is really good, and we can see if we can kind of get that school onto the recommended list. All right, but I need to do this in some kind of controlled way, which is why even though some school might be fantastic out there, if I haven't had a chance to be in contact with them and feature them and so on, I will not say anything about them. And I hope that makes sense to you guys. So, from Tom Hall 357, what light aircraft did you train in? I trained in the Cessna 152, then the Cessna 172, the Cessna 172 RG, that's retractable gear, the Cessna 182, Cessna 182 retractable gear, the Cessna 340, which is a fantastic twin-engine aircraft, and then straight into the 737. So those are the aircraft that I've been flying. I also flew a little bit of Piper 28. Right, K9 Pilot 44 again. Thank you. What engine do you prefer, Pratt & Whitney, Rolls-Royce, or General Electric? Yeah, the CFM56 is my preferred engine because I fly it. I work with it. It's a really reliable, really good engine. Apart from that, all of these engine manufacturers have been going through the same kind of safety protocol. They have been checked out to the same standard. So they're all fantastic. All right, they're all really great engines. If not, they will not be allowed onto an aircraft. And anytime that you hear that some engine has an engine problem or so, that's when they've found out that, yeah, there was some kind of weak link inside of this engine. It's now being fixed and it's being retrofitted onto all of the other aircrafts that are out there. So generally speaking, when it's like asking me what I prefer when it comes to Boeing or Airbus, they're both fantastic at what they do. They're safe, reliable aircraft that have been tested out many hours before they're let out to the flying public. So it's hard for me to sit here and say, well, that one is a little bit better and that one is a bit better. Normally, when they're fitted onto the aircraft, me as a pilot, I just worry about the fact that it's actually running. If it's running, it's a good engine for me. Right, guys, so so there's no more super chat questions, which means that I'll go on to the Mentor Aviation app, and as you can see, I've gotten loads of push notifications as you were been asking. Right, Mentor, what are your views on the Airbus A220-300. Do you like it? Keep up the good videos. Yeah, the new C series. I thought it was hilarious when they rebranded the Bombardier C series into an Airbus 220. All right, I thought it was a great publicity stunt from Airbus. Very funny. I mean, the C series, I actually have another little series on the app. If you go into the home screen on the app, you'll see the little plane war that was fought between Airbus and Boeing when it came to Bombardier and their C series. It's actually fantastic, you know. It's great to watch. It seems like the C series is a great little aircraft doing exactly what you want, and that's probably why both Boeing and Airbus wanted to get it, because, or either wanted to get it or wanted to shut it out, because it was really good in the segment it is trying to be good at. All right, and they either you stop it from completing altogether. This is what Boeing tried, or you try to get it and actually use it as an asset, which is what Airbus did. Okay, and in this case, I'm happy that Airbus won, because I think that having lost the C series would have been a huge loss to the aviation world. So good on them. Right, so Silly Green 3593. My medical got declined due to my meds. While I get rid of them, what can I do to prep for flight training? Can I fly in 6 to 8 months? Cheers from Emily. All right, so Emily, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that, but since it's because of meds, it means that you need to be off your meds for a certain month, which I'm sure that your AME, your air medical examiner, has already told you. So use that time to prepare. Start reading theory, stuff like that, in order to kind of get yourself prepared for the flight training as it comes. But definitely make sure that you get rid of the meds and that you're well enough to get rid of the meds, because either or, you need to feel well and you need to be fully ready when you start your flight training. So I would start with reading some theory, staying on forums, talking on things like the Mentour Aviation app, things like that. Oh, and I also want to take this opportunity, guys. I'm sure that most of you have seen the reason that I had to take down my water salute video on Thursday when I was about to release it, because it clashed with Captain Joe. Now, once again, I want to clarify that me and Captain Joe are not competing. We just happen to think alike sometimes, and this time we had the same idea about the video the same day. He was first, so I took it down. And when I took it down, what happened was that you know that little notification that you get if you've clicked the notification bell? Right, I don't know what happened now. There we go. You know that little notification you get when you've clicked the notification bell? Yeah. So that notification is what drives about 90% of the initial traffic to any video that I release. And since I took it down, it meant that people that clicked that link could not see the video anymore and they just went off it. So while my videos normally get quite a lot of views in the first 24 hours or so, because I took it down, out of respect, it didn't get as much views as they normally get. And I had a sponsor for that video. Now that sponsor was really, really gracious and happy and said that, listen, we like the way that you handle that, that's fine, but I want to give them something, right? I want to show that if you are sponsoring my channel and you're helping my channel to grow by being a sponsor, I want you to get the full value out of it. So guys, if you are watching this and you think that my English is a bit quick, or you think that, oh, I wish I could speak English like that dude does, then what I would like you to do is check out the sponsor to last week's video and the sponsor of this video now, which is Cambly. All right, Cambly is a fairly unique service in the way that they hook you up with a tutor of your choice. So rather than you having to write, difficult exams and then they try to find your English level, what they will do is you go in and you find a tutor of your choice. It could be an aviator, it could be a pilot. There's several pilots on there actually. And then you can talk to them and they can decide what you need to do, if you need to improve your grammar or your vocabulary or stuff like that. So in the description here of this video, I have 2 links. One link will give you 15 minutes for free. So I want you all that have any kind of ideas about wanting to try this to click that link and just hook up with some kind of tutor and see what it's all about, right? It costs you nothing. The other one is a 10% rebate if you want to actually buy a, let's say, a set of a certain amount of lessons. That will give you 10% off, okay? But do use those links, because I really, I think that Cambly can help people with English. This is why I'm using these sponsors. That's why I'm using Brilliant, because I want you to improve your math and physics skills, you know. That's why I'm using Cambly for your English skill, Skillshare for learning pretty much anything. But you see, you kind of see why, what kind of sponsor that I'm using. I'm using sponsors that I think can give you something, you know, something that I know that you guys will benefit from. That's what I'm trying to achieve with my sponsors, and that's why I want them to be happy and continue to sponsor the channel. Right, so great. Let's see, more questions then from Lloyd Cole Nolan. Could you tell me about your first solo? My first solo. Yeah. I had done the first couple of. I knew I was close to my solo. All right. You kind of know when you're starting to feel you've done a couple of lessons. So I volunteered to go and fly at like I think it was 6 o'clock in the morning or something like that. I got up early. I went there. We did I think 2 circuits or something in the morning, and then my instructor, which is called Berthold, told me, okay, you can taxi into the tank, and I thought we were just going to refuel a little bit. So we taxied into the tank, and then he just got out. The engine was still running, and he said, "All right, you're off on your own. Go and do a couple of circuits, and then come back here." And I remember that feeling of just like first being a little terrified because this is the first time, and then that feeling of that enormous feeling of satisfaction when you're taxiing out, talking to air traffic control by yourself for the first time, taking off and realizing as you've taken off that, oh, I'm in air. I'm in the air now. The only one who can take me down is me. It's all up to me now. And that feeling of like terror and enjoyment at the same time is something that I wish all of you guys will have the chance to experience. It's a fantastic feeling. And you get down and you have, you know, you're just buzzing with adrenaline, and it was great. It was great. I remember the color of the aircraft. The registration was Sierra Echo India Bravo uniform, I think, on the Cessna 172 that I did it on. It was great. Okay. Cool. So, Kevin Sutherland, what are the steps for a medical emergency? Well, the steps are fairly easy. First of all, you find out how bad it is. As in, we try to do a doctor or nurse call, so they call for medically equipped personnel. The cabin crew does that. Try to find someone who can come and do a proper assessment. And if we can find an assessment, then I will ask the doctor or the nurse what their opinion is. If their opinion is, listen, you need to get this person down and medical care as soon as possible, then what we do is we find out as much as we can about the patient, what sex it is, what age it is, if they have had any prior problems, if they have any medication, and what the chief complaints are. So male, 65-year-old, chest pains, on no previous problems with the heart. That's what we do. We call probably a pan call, an urgency call, saying that we have a medical emergency. It could be a mayday as well, depending on severity, but normally I would say we would start with a pan call, and then we would ask, start looking at what's the closest alternate that we can fly to within about 120 miles, which is what we need in order to descend anyway. Find that out, tell air traffic control we need to go there and land, and sometimes we ask for a discrete frequency, which is a frequency that doesn't transmit to all, because we might not want to transmit the nature of the problem or whatever sensitive information there might be about the patient all over the frequency. So we might get a discrete frequency which we can talk to and tell them, listen, we're coming in, it's a male 65-year-old with chest pains, so we need an ambulance to meet us up on arrival. And then we will just, start preparing, setting up, briefing for an approach like we would, and we will get there expeditiously, normally flying maybe a little bit faster than we would normally, but without breaking any rules and without endangering the aircraft. So even if someone is in a bad shape, we are going to try to get them down as quickly and safely as possible, but that includes the entire aircraft, including the crew and the rest of the passengers, obviously. So those are the kind of steps that we go through normally. Is there a maximum height to be a pilot? Let's see, I'm scrolling up and down a little bit here. So that's from James McTeer. Yes, there are maximum heights, okay, but they're really high. I have flown with pilots that have been more than 2 meters tall and they could still fly. The reason that it could be a maximum height is the same reason it could be a minimum height, which is that you need to be able to fit comfortably inside of a cockpit. So if you're too short, you might not be able to see above the dashboard and give full rudder deflection at the same time. Too tall, you might actually sit, maximum away from the pedals and still hit your head in the overhead panel. Now, as you can imagine, you need to be really, really tall for that actually to be a real problem. So, around 2 meters is still okay. Marcus Christiansen, would you recommend going to college before joining a Center Air Pilot Academy in Denmark? I have a lot of work experience. Thank you for helping us all. No, not really. Like I've said many times before, and I'm going to continue saying, it depends a little bit about the requirements that the airlines that you're aiming for have. So you'll need to go into whatever airline that you're aiming for. If you're going for Ryanair, EasyJet, SAS, or Wizz Air, or whatever it might be, look at their recruitment pages and see if they require you to have that. If they do, then sure, go for it. I don't have any secondary schooling, right? I don't have any university degree. So I didn't do that, and I fared quite well. But it might be, it's also possible that the Chinese market is going to change this a little bit, because it looks like the Chinese market is going to have a requirement of a university degree in order to get a job in China at all. And that means that I'm disqualified from those jobs, if that is actually true. So it could be a good idea, but it's not a full requirement. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Jordan Coles, do cargo planes have or need a cockpit door? Yes, otherwise the pilots couldn't get into the cockpit, and that's always a good thing. I'm not sure if I understood the question properly, but yes, they do have a cockpit door because the pilots have to go in, and also they normally have a little bit of a crew compartment behind, maybe with some bunk beds and stuff like that. I haven't been on board any real cargo ships of the size of a 747, for example, so this is probably a question that you should ask to Captain Joe. Since he's now a cargo pilot, he will be able to explain that better to you. But yes, there is always going to be a cockpit door. Isaac Cool from Canada, thank you very much for just supporting the channel. If you had a question, then it didn't come through, and in that case, you go into the Mentour Aviation app, submit feedback, send me an email, and I will answer it. Just write a super chat question, and I will definitely respond. The reason I'm telling you to do that is because I do get loads and loads of emails, and I just cannot answer all of them. Even though I would, and I would love to help everyone, I only have so many hours in a day, and especially now when on vacation, I try to minimize my phone and my screen time a bit. So I will have to choose between the emails that I answer. Sometimes, for example, if you ask a question that I've actually answered in a live stream, I will not answer it because I want you guys to pay attention. It's one of the most important things that you do during your training. Pay attention to what the instructor tells you, write it down, and ask relevant questions basically. Asif Siddiq, thank you very much. Your content is absolutely phenomenal. Aww. Thank you for doing this. What are your thoughts on UFO sightings by commercial airline pilots? Yeah, they're just that. UFO stands for unidentified flying object, right? It means that it could be anything. It could be a military aircraft, it could be a little green man from Mars, and it could be a blimp. Okay, so I don't have any real views on it. We need to report anything that we see that's out of the ordinary, because it could be dangerous for us or other aircraft. So if I see something, if I see a light, for example, out my window, and I don't see anything on TCAS, I'm going to ask air traffic control, listen, do you have any traffic in the area? Because I'm right now seeing a large tubular formed silver thing that is flying around my aircraft. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to make a report about it when I get down on the ground. This is not something that my company will have something to think about or say something about, or my colleagues, because it could be anything. It could be a weather balloon, it could be absolutely anything. So pilots, professional pilots, do see things, right? We do see from time to time strange lighting phenomena and stuff like that, and it might be important that it's being reported. Okay, so no, I don't have any real thoughts of it. Have I seen stuff? Yes. Any pilot who's flown for for a number of years probably seen strange lights, for example. Is it extraterrestrials? Probably not. Probably something else. Right? But it doesn't make it less interesting. Right. So technology nerd. See, I'm a little bit behind here now. Technology nerd. 18. If a pilot has an emergency, like a heart attack, can the other pilot land the aircraft by himself or herself? Or do you have two pilots and people in the cockpit at once? Yeah, of course. A, a two-pilot system is a redundant system. What that means is that any pilot can fly the aircraft perfectly. This is one of my most important roles as a training captain. When I take new pilots on to train, they will come with a third pilot sitting in the back for the first couple of sectors. And that's because I need to make the judgment that this pilot is now qualified, is good enough to be able to fly this aircraft in case something happens to me. This is how the airline business has become as safe as it is because we're using redundant systems. We're using two engines, three hydraulic systems, two brake systems. There's always a redundant system. So if one breaks, the other one picks up the slack, at least to a certain extent. And it's the same with pilots. So yeah, the answer to your question is the other pilot, he or she can perfectly fly the aircraft by him or herself. Of course, you don't have the same redundancy. If something happens to them, then we're in really bad shit, okay? But, oh, I said that word again, but I'm getting so much grief on the internet. But that's what it is. So, yes, that's the answer to your question. By the way, I have done videos on pilot incapacitation. You can check that out as well. Can you tell me about your first go-around? I can't remember my first go-around. We do go-arounds, right? Go-arounds happens for a variety of reasons. Normally because of weather phenomenon, had too high crosswind, for example, it doesn't feel like the aircraft is stabilized anymore, or it could be because we're coming in and we suddenly have too much tailwind, we can't get the speed off, we can't get the flaps out, we go around, or a vehicle enters the runway, or something like that. Or air traffic control feels like there's not enough separation between two approaching aircraft, or one aircraft taking off and another one landing. And in that case, they will tell us to go around, and we go around. It's not a big deal. We do train this quite a lot, both in initial training, we train it during our recurrent training. We don't train it on line training, because in line training we just try to get the passengers where they're going, but it can happen in line training. In that case, we train it there as well. So a go around, although it's not a maneuver that we do very often, I would probably do a couple of go arounds per year, right? So no, I can't remember my first go around. Adam F. Would controlled epilepsy stop me from flying? I believe so, unfortunately. Now, having said that, I always tell you guys that I don't want to talk about medical conditions, because I'm not a trained doctor, and you might tell me something, I might misunderstand you, and you might think that I've told you that you can't be a pilot, and it turned out that I was wrong. All right, so epilepsy is one of those things. Unless it's gone away and it's something that only happened in childhood and stuff, is one of those things that do normally disqualify you from flying larger aircraft. However, it can be, when you say it's controlled, I might be wrong. It might be something that you can actually test and get through anyway. So go and contact your aeromedical center, the AMC. Okay, there is at least one in each country. You can email them, or you can just email an AME, an aeromedical examiner, which tends to be at least one in each city, and tell them what you have, and it's likely going to be some kind of a discussion, as in they will probably try to determine how bad it is and stuff like that. So rather than just doing a test, there might be several tests, because you've had that as a medical condition. But never say never. Always contact the doctors to get the proper facts, and that's why I don't really want to talk about those things, because I don't really know them. All right, check out my video about the when I talked to a real aeromedical examiner. Okay, I have the videos in the channel. Just look for medical questions for the Mentour Pilot or something like that, and you'll find it. Dog Paulie, Dog, great to hear from you. Hi Mentor, a pilot on the Papa Restre route flew the 1.7-mile journey 12,000 times before retiring. Do you ever get bored of a route? That's a lot of doing the same route, and yeah, you can. It's not so much that you get bored with it as in you get complacent, and complacency is something that can be very dangerous. Complacency is when you think that you know something by heart, so you don't really check stuff, and you start to become sloppy, and you do stuff, and then one day something is off, but you just fly it the same way that you've done it anyway, and you end up causing problem. All right, if you're gonna fly the same route over and over, like you said, 12,000 times, you better be really, really professional and make sure that you, every time you get to work, you still check the NOTAMs, you still brief, you still do all of these things, maybe to a shortened extent, but be very careful with complacency, because it does kick in, especially under those circumstances. Um, if you get bored, you do something else. That's what I've always said. Like, no one is forced to do anything in this life unless you have some very special circumstances. If I would get unhappy or bored with what I'm doing, then I would do something else. This channel is a perfect example of that. Okay, I'm doing this because it's a way for me to build experience on something that I felt was exciting. It's completely different from what I do on my day-to-day job, which I feel exciting, and it kind of stops me from having to change into a different job, right? I hope that makes sense. So, if you hear screaming, by the way, in the background, that is one of my nieces that are a little bit unhappy with something. And let's see, I am a little bit behind now. There we go. Would you want to fly the Boeing hypersonic concept? Sure, if it's proven to be safe, I would love to do that. I mean, you can't be a pilot and not be curious about flying and new stuff and new technology, because then this job is not for you. So of course I would like to try to fly that. If Boeing is ever releasing a hypersonic aircraft and they ask me if I want to fly it, I will say yes, absolutely. Michael Harvey, thank you very much for helping the channel. Numlock 286, hi Mentor, could you please tell more about runway requirements and takeoff speeds on a hot day like 32 degrees Celsius in Stockholm? Well, first of all, I mean, I'm normally in Spain, which means 32 degrees is just a normal day. But yes, what happens is that since the density of the air becomes less when the air is hotter, it also means that A, the wings are not as effective, and B, the engines are not as effective. So you need longer runway, and you need basically you need longer runway for those particular reasons. So when we do our takeoff calculation, all of this is taken into account. So we know that if it's 32 degrees outside, we might need slightly higher thrust rating than we would normally. We can't derate as much. We might even need a higher fixed derate. So instead of 24K, we might go 26K. But all of this is being calculated so that we reach the optimum thrust setting for that particular runway. A problem that can come if you get really up on high altitudes and hot weather is that you can exceed your tire speeds. Because the tires can only roll up to a certain speed before they explode, right? They're not built to indefinitely increase the speed like a Bugatti Veyron, right? They basically above about 196 knots. That tends to be the maximum tire speed, and you can reach that if you are starting to get up into really low density air. So that could be something to look out for. Obviously, that our chart would tell us that. When we do our performance, it would say we can't do it. You can fly a Boeing up to about 50 degrees centigrade. Above that, it's not allowed to fly anymore with the engines that we are fitted with. So when we check our RTOWs, our restricted takeoff weight sheets, then it will tell us that above 50 degrees, it will just say an A outside of the temperature, which sounds that it's outside of the environmental envelope for the engine. All right, so yeah, we do take it into account. We're well aware of it, and those are the kind of things that can happen. How do pilots handle a 9 to 10 hour flight? What do they do for those hours? Well, I've done a 10-hour flight. We had quite a lot to do, actually. We had to do since we were not ETOPS approved and are not ETOPS approved, we had to fly at least within 1 hour from a suitable alternate. And when we flew into oceanic routes, which we did when we flew via, basically from when we passed Greenland over Iceland and down to Dublin, which I flew to, Then you need to hold a plotter chart and you need to plot your position. And at given intervals, you need to call air traffic control via a HF radio with your position, speed, and so on. And that's because they don't have radar coverage over there in most cases, and they rely on aircraft keeping their separation by entry points. So they need to enter the oceanic entry point at a specific time and a specific altitude and a specific speed, and then the separation between the aircraft are being kept by the fact that they're keeping the same speed, the same altitude, and the next one is not allowed to enter the oceanic airspace until a specific time after that. That way they know that the aircraft are not going to get too close to each other because we fly that accurately. Okay, so we were sitting and we were plotting and we were sending out radio calls, and between that we were talking, and of course we were flying for the first time that I've ever flown over Greenland. We saw the Northern Lights. I've actually put pictures on that on my Instagram that I'm hoping that you checked out, Mentour_Pilot, where there were Northern Lights all over the sky, and we started at 10 o'clock in the evening from Seattle, and then we flew obviously eastbound, so we met the daylight coming, so we only had a night that was about 4 hours long or 3 hours long before we met it about 1 o'clock local time, Seattle time. But that, obviously since you're moving through time zones now, it starts to become a little bit complicated to keep track of the time. But it was a really short night. It was full of Northern Lights. Beautiful and clear day as well. It was one of the best flights, if not the best flights I've ever done. So, and on a normal 9 to 10 hour flights, there are other stuff like that, keeping air traffic control in the loop, talking to each other, and if it's a really long haul flight, then there might be a relief crew as well, so you might go for a nap or stuff like that. So, what's the max age to start as a commercial pilot from March? What is the max age to start as a commercial pilot and get the job? How are flight hours checked by employers if you have flown in different countries? Yeah, so there are no maximum ages. Normally 60 is one of those magic ages where you might start to have age-related difficulties, but I should put a caveat in here. I have heard about airlines that do have age limits, okay? And they differ, right? From sometimes as early as 35 or something in like flag carriers to up to 55. It might be differences. So once again, do check out the airlines that you're aiming for and go into their recruitment pages and see if they have any restrictions, okay? I mean, my airline, there is, to my knowledge, no age limit. Okay, I met a first officer that started when he was 50 and started going for his command at 55. So that does happen. Okay, the flight hours, you have to keep a logbook. You have to keep the logbook up to date, and the logbook needs to match the registration of the aircrafts that you've flown and so on. So normally this is an honorable agreement, as in the airline will assume that your pilot logbook is truthful. You've signed that it's truthful, just like any legal document. You've signed that I promise that I have not made this up. But if they are unsure, if they think that, well, this is a 20-year-old that has 10,000 hours on 737, they can always check out. They can contact the airline that you might have come from, and they can check out. So on this day, we have this guy flying this aircraft. Does that check out? And if you're found out to have falsified your flying hours, you're in deep shit. You will probably never get a job in the industry again. Okay, so do not do that. All right, this is a gentleman industry which is highly built on trust and the trustworthiness of its pilots. And if you're found out to cheat and something like that, a very valid question would be, well, what else is this guy cheating on? Right? So it's a good question. Cool. So from James McAteer, can you get finance at your local flight schools for an integrator CPL course? By the way, your channel is awesome. You could, I guess. You can find someone who sponsors you. You can find an airline who sponsors you. Something is very rare, though. All right. I am working hard on this channel to try to convince flight schools and airlines to get discounts to you guys and to get even possibly sponsorships or some kind of financial help. Anyway, I think it's going to become more common in the future with sponsorships, especially airlines sponsoring people that they have checked out, that they have screened themselves, and then they give them the training. and possibly bond them to keep, right, you get the training, but we're going to keep you for 7 years in the airline, things like that. I think we're going to start seeing this as the pilot shortage gets worse. But to just find a sponsor in your local flying school is going to be very hard. All right, I'm not saying it's impossible. I've seen stranger things in my career, but I would say that it would be very, very hard indeed. So I wouldn't, keep your, keep your breath to try to find that. Doug Pauly, again, how is sharing space and ATC with general aviation? Is it frustrating or harder work when non-professionals share the skies with you? No, not really. Normally, the non-professionals tries very hard to be professional. So the only times that it becomes a little bit annoying is when people speak in their own native tongue and they do these prolonged, long messages that takes forever. And we're sitting there, we might be waiting to get a takeoff clearance for a slot, or we might be asking for pushback, stuff like that, and then you get someone in French speaking for 5 minutes, giving a position, for example, that you can't understand even. That can be frustrating, but generally, otherwise, as long as people are keeping to the rules of the air, flying where they're promising to be flying, and not, getting into the departure routes or the arrival routes of us, it's generally not a problem. I've had a TCAS RA once because of a VFR flight in my career, but that's about it. Okay, and I was a first officer at the time. Cool, I'm going to take some questions from the Mentour Aviation app as well, and then I am going to call this a day because it's still vacation, actually. I'm still in Sweden. I'm going to go up to Örnsköldsvik, which is my old hometown. Beautiful Örnsköldsvik. If you ever get a chance to go up into northern Sweden, do so and visit Örnsköldsvik. It's by the sea. I'm going to go up there and do some fishing with my sons, which I do every year. And I'm really, really looking forward to that. That's why I'm going to cut this short in a while. So, Balai, Mentor, there is a small charter jet engine failed in Mumbai, India. My question is, if both engines fail, what will you do? If both engines fail, we have procedures for trying to relight them. So loss of trust on both engines, memory items are the first thing that we're going to do. Pilot flying will continue to fly the aircraft and try to find a suitable place to land. So if we're high altitude, we have a lot of, you have potentially about 100 to 120 miles that you can choose airports in between. So pilot flying would start to kind of plan to go towards a landable airstrip. Pilot monitoring is doing memory items and trying to restart. We'll probably start the APU fairly quickly to start to get electrical power because we're running on batteries at that point. We don't have a ram air turbine on the 737. We run off batteries, and the batteries have a minimum of 60 minutes, so that's not going to be a problem. But we do want the full electrical system up and running. So the APU will be started. That will provide both electrical and hydraulic power. We will have some hydraulic power anyway. But that's initially what we'll do. Then depending on if we can get one engine started or not, we will continue. But in any case, you need to fairly quickly decide on the plan. Like if we can't get the engine started, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? Tell the cabin crew to prepare for a no time available emergency, so that they start telling the passengers to prepare for a possible crash landing, things like that. There's loads of stuff to take into account in case you have a loss of both engines. Mentor, I cannot pass the Ishihara test. Is this a problem? Yeah, that might be a problem. All right. Once again, it's a medical question. Do talk to your aeromedical center or your aeromedical examiner. But yes, at the moment, not proficient color vision is a showstopper for a class 1 medical. Right, guys, if you have any more last minute questions, then use the super chat now. Otherwise, I will take some more questions here from the Mentour Aviation app, which is just popping full of questions now. It's great. The new update makes it really easy to navigate the chat. You can just push on whoever you want to answer to, and that automatically sends them a push when you've answered. So it's a great new update, and I hope that you've all tried out by now. And if not, you should. Right, Mentor, have you been to Espresso House? Do pilots get discounts on shop and vendor at the airport? Yes, I've been to Espresso House. Yes, sometimes we do get discount, but not as pilots, as airport workers. So airport workers tend to get about 10-15% discount in shops and stuff on the airport, depending on what airline that you work for. Leonidas, Mentor, lately when I think of my social life and the females, I forget about planes. But then when I think of planes, I forget the rest. What do you recommend? you sound completely normal to me. When I think about my wife, I don't think about planes either. So it's, you know, the one thing doesn't kind of overrule the other. Planes is we're talking about an occupation here, a job, right? So it shouldn't be more than that. It becomes a bit of a passion in the beginning as well, and it needs to be, but it should definitely not take over your social life. In that case, you have a problem. Marcus Christiansen, bye. Thanks for all the answers and the content. Well, bye. Thank to you. I am thinking about what I'm going to do for Friday's release, right? I got a little bit put off by the fact that I had that clash with Captain Joe last time, and I don't really want to spend my vacation correcting videos. So there might not be a video release, or there might be, you know. Stay tuned on Friday at 9 and see what comes up. But I have a few things in mind that I would like to talk to you about. There's loads of things popping into my head that I should be talking to you about. And there's a few that I think that you will really, really like. So hopefully on Friday I have a new video for you. Would anyone be interested, for example, to know about cosmic radiation? How dangerous it is for pilots and how dangerous it is for passengers? Just write yes if you think that that will be something that will be interesting to hear about. See if I can get any kind of response here in the normal chat. But anyway, go in and give me a shout out about that in the Mentour Aviation app. Well, there's quite a few yeses here. Yeah, because it's kind of a little bit spooky. You know, there's quite a lot of information that I'm sure that you don't know about both cosmic radiation and what it does and how it's being monitored. So yeah, I will probably do something about that. But I won't be in my uniform. I refuse to put my uniform on when I'm on vacation. So you're going to see me like this. It's probably somewhere in the house here. All right. So 2 more super chat questions and then I will call it a day. Thoughts on the pilot shortage? Best time to start now. Yeah, the pilot's position situation is just getting better at the moment. It's better than I've ever seen it. But having said that, I've said in many live streams on this subject, you never know how long this will last. Donald Trump is starting to become a real uncertainty factor. All right, if he starts a war somewhere, now he starts talking about the EU being his enemy, which is unheard of. You know, and when you start to have real uncertainty and a possibility of war, then the aviation community, obviously, or the aviation business gets hurt very quickly because people stop traveling. So I would say right now, yes, given the trajectory that the business is on, it's a good time to start, and it's definitely a good time to be a pilot. If that's going to last, I'm not so sure. Okay, I'm hoping that it will last, but it's looking a little bit tricky, the world situation at the moment, and that will definitely have an impact on the aviation industry going forward. Right, so Immortal Cheese, what do you think about the huge increase in aircraft incidents in 2018 compared to previous years? The thing is that it's not a huge increase in incidents, it just feels like it. Okay, when we summarize this year, I'm fairly sure, unless more things start to pop up, that it's going to be an average year. Now, last year was fantastic. There was no death in commercial aviation, which is unheard of. I think it's the first time ever since aviation started. Now this year has become more normal, okay? But of course, when there's a lot of incidents in a short span of time, it feels like there's more incidents, okay? And remember that the press is blowing up everything that happens into huge proportions. Like that incident with the Ryanair aircraft that had the rapid depressurization, for example. That's something that happens more or less every week somewhere in the world. It's not a huge deal. It is for the passengers involved. Obviously, they're going to be scared, and some have actually been hurt by the pressure change. But it's not a big deal. The Southwest incident, one woman unfortunately died in that incident. The Chinese incident where the window got blown off, no one died. Okay, so but it was news was pumped out, just like some, you know, a lot of people died that same day. If you would have just Googled how many people died in traffic that day, you will find out that there were thousands of them. Okay, every day. All right. There's like, let's see, I read some statistics today that said, I think it was, what was it, 62,000 deaths in cancer in the US alone during last year, probably more than that. While there were a couple of hundreds, now this was not last year, this was 2014, I think, but it was a couple of hundreds in the aviation business. But you don't really hear about all of those, and that's because the media has a love affair with horrible things happening in the aviation industry, and that's why it feels like this thing is, oh, there's just planes falling down all over the place. But if you just go out and look at Flight Radar 24 and see how many planes are actually flying at every given minute, you'll understand that that's not really the case. Like, the aviation business is among the safest business in the world. That is up there together with the nuclear industry, right? Boats, things like that. Accidents will continue to happen as long as you have people flying at the rate that we do. There will be accidents, there will be mechanical failures, there will be human factor errors, there will be stuff like that. But we're working day out, day in to avoid those things from happening. And that's what I'm trying. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to educate you guys about how we deal with things. I'm here to educate you about how safe this business is and how we think about safety and how it is always our primary concern and what is the only thing. That's the first line in the operations manual of my airline, okay? Our main target is to conduct the air traffic safely, right? Our air traffic safely. It's the first point in the operations manual. So, good to think about. Right, could you please check out the Atlantic Airways library and give your thoughts about it before you leave? All right, so I shall be Googling right now. Atlantic Airways library. Ah, that looks good from what I can see. Nice, clean, blue and white. That little eagle on top. I like it. I probably would have. I don't know. No. I think it's a nice, clean library. Why are you asking? No, I mean, library discussions about library is not really something that I do. Most of them I think look professional and good. I think this looks really nice actually. I've never seen it before, but cool. Thumbs up. If Marcus, if you're the one that has actually designed it, good work. And guys, on that bombshell, I will be ending this live stream. Okay. Have an absolutely fantastic day wherever you are. As always, take care of each other. Do spread the word about the channel, and also go now down here and click on that link for 15 minutes with Cambly. All right, check it out and tell me as well what you think about it. Okay, send me a message through the app or whatever when you've tried it and see if it's helped you or not. Because I want feedback, so I want to make sure that I'm not giving you guys or showing things off on the channel that you don't like. But I'm fairly sure because I've tried it myself. And they're actually really, really nice, these tutors. So go down, check out 15 minutes, say hello from me. Have a fantastic day wherever you are, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.